All right, welcome. The name of this workshop is Relapse. My name is Pam, and I am a compulsive overeater. Welcome to the first ever Dallas Virtual Convention. This season's sessions format is speaker for 30 minutes, then the floor will be opened for 2-minute question and answer shares. Before I introduce the speaker, here is some housekeeping information. Attendees are set to mute. We ask you to rename yourself to your first name and last initial. So if you wish, you can add your phone number or email. This session is being recorded. Only the audio portion will be made available. Please stop your video if you are walking around, driving, or eating. You will still be able to hear the session. We may turn off your video for you. Please send a chat message when you are ready to have your video turned back on. If you want to change your view settings, click on the view button on the top right of your screen. You may choose either gallery or speaker view. Also, please note that the chat is set to host only. If you want to change your view settings, click on the view button on the top right of your screen. You may choose either gallery or speaker view. Please note that the chat is set to host only. Please note that questions and comments will be seen only by the host. And our speaker is Deliah. Hi, please go ahead.
Thank you.
And is there a way that you would like your time so that the timer can do that for you, Deliah?
Gail and I already worked that out. Thank you.
Good.
Gail is all over it this morning. And so I think, funny enough, one of the most famous phrases for 2020 and 2021 is "you are on mute." That is the phrase that will last for our lifetime, I feel like. Anyhow, so my name is Deliah. I'm a compulsive overeater and food addict. And it's so great to see some familiar faces and some new faces. So I'm really glad that you guys are here this morning. Morning, Libby. And so the topic today is relapse. And I had sent over kind of my bio to be read this morning. And so let me just kind of give you a little bit of a brief history about my experience in this program. I started this program when it was 2002. And just to kind of give you an illustration, I was over 450 pounds. And I don't know exactly how much I was because the scale stopped. More importantly, I was miserable. I was dying. I was lying. I was cheating. I was doing all sorts of things that we all do with food that we all share that. So I don't have to re-describe that. And, in the big book, and I will refer to the big book a lot, it talks a lot on page 52, excuse me. And these are also commonly known as the bedevilments. And so this is what my life was and can be today if I don't stay in fit spiritual condition. We had to ask ourselves why we shouldn't apply our human problems the same readiness to change our point of view. We were having trouble with personal relationships. Yep. We couldn't control our emotions. Yep. We were preyed to misery and depression. Yep. Couldn't make a living. Yep. We had a feeling of uselessness. Yep. Full of fear. Absolutely. And I was unhappy. Absolutely. We couldn't seem to be a real help to other people. And were these not a basic solution of these bedevilments more important than whether we should see newsreels of lunar flight? Of course it was. And the point of me actually talking about those bedevilments is just so that it gives a really good illustration of how unhappy my life was. I mean, all of those things existed, and they existed to such a degree that I couldn't get myself out of it. I got into program, got abstinent for a very, very long time. And I actually separate kind of my no sugar abstinence versus my no flour abstinence. My no sugar abstinence, I have not had sugar in over 15 years. For that, I'm very grateful. My life was consumed with sugar. It was consumed with flour. It was consumed with a whole lot of other things that just kind of went away. because my problem was really the food. And so there was times where I was drinking, there were times I was doing other things besides drinking, and eventually it just kind of withered away, and food really was my problem. There is a pretty major speaker that kind of is around the speaker circuit, and he talks a lot about, why would we do this to ourselves? Why would we create and allow this? If I could stop it, I would have. And the example that he will say is, well, when he's referring it to himself. When he became 300 pounds, that wasn't enough for him to stop. When he got to 400 pounds, that wasn't enough for him to stop. When he got to 500, and on and on and on, and I think about that in terms of my experiences. When I got to those 100-pound milestones, was that enough for me to stop compulsively eating? Of course not, because it's all in my head. It's the whole disease centers around my head. And the big book talks about that. If I stay in fit spiritual condition, then I don't ever have to go back to the food. The key is staying in fit spiritual condition, and that requires work. And so, I did all of that work. I did that work for a very long time. But about 2010, I would say, and I think, we've all kind of been around long enough to know that, the first bite doesn't really, like, your first sign of relapse really isn't the bite. It isn't the food. It's the actions that come before the food. It's the thought process. And, I think God gives us all these warnings. But I will be very honest, it makes me very emotional to talk about it. But I wasn't going to meetings as often. I wasn't working my step work like I was supposed to. I wasn't doing 10, 11, and 12 like I'm supposed to. I wasn't doing it the way the book says to do it. And eventually I relapsed. And the real sucky part about it is the day that I relapsed was the day after my kid was born. And I went into this like massive relapse for several years. And it was terrible. It was like the worst. I mean, it was worse because I had a head full of program, right? It was worse because I knew better. It was worse because, well, how could this happen to me, right? All my ego started to play into everything. And, I stayed in relapse and continuously had flour for about 3 years. And I never went back to the sugar, which really tells me flour is my problem. The longer I'm in this program, the more foods I have problems with. And then I learn I have more problems with. And that kind of sucks too. But guess what? I don't want to live in that misery anymore. I don't want to be unhappy. I don't want to have those bedevilments again. And so, being in relapse really made me not see the reality of things. It lets me escape. It talks about, in the doctor's opinion, Dr. Silkworth says, and I'm going to make this applicable to me. I'm on page XXVI in the doctor's opinion. And I have the 3rd edition. So it says, and again, I'm going to change it to where it's me. I eat essentially because I like the effect produced by food. And what is that effect, right? I'm a new parent. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Oh my God, this happened, that happened, my body this, my job this. I took 1 month of maternity leave. And who does that? That's kind of insane. That's like barely doing anything. But I kept thinking, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And it was all I. But all those feelings were coming up, and I didn't have a way to escape those feelings, right? Because I wasn't working 10, 11, and 12. I wasn't working a program. I just then used the food to get that effect. And that effect is that sensation of everything is going to be okay. I can deal with this again today. And it is so elusive, meaning I'm constantly trying to chase that effect. I'm constantly trying to chase that aha moment of it's going to be okay. And we all know what that feels like, right? We all have eaten something and we literally feel the euphoria of having eaten it. And even though I admit binging on flour or binging on corn or whatever the food is, it's injurious to me. I get it. But after a while, I can't differentiate the truth from the false. My reality becomes completely skewed when it comes to food. When it comes to food, I will put that above anything and everything, including my kid. And some things I've done that were hugely embarrassing. Like I breastfed while I was binging with him. Like literally, he's on my boob and I'm binging on the other side of it. It's embarrassing, hugely embarrassing. But my brain is so muffled and confused because of the food. That's the acts I'm doing. There were times where he's like, "Come on, mama, let's play." And I'm like too tired because I'm too lethargic. I'm too hungover with food. I'm too this, I'm too that. And those are the ways that my addiction becomes injurious and I don't see it because of how the food responds and how my brain goes. To me, my compulsive overeating life seems to be the only normal one. And then when I try to stop, right, like white knuckling it, sometimes people refer to it as a diet, I become restless, irritable, and discontented. And for me, what that looks like is pissy, pissy, pissy. I get real frustrated real fast. I'm a busy person. I just move all the time. So, but that restlessness is my brain. My brain is like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? I do a lot of comparisons. I do a lot of, oh, well, how come they have better this than that? And I do a lot of crazy things in my head, and that's that restlessness. And then I become pissy, the irritable, and discontented. So then I'm just overall pissy and unhappy, right? But then what am I doing? I'm trying to chase that effect again. And that effect is, it's going to be okay, right? Instead of going and getting the relief from the steps as outlined in the big book, I look for the food to tell me. And I lived in this constant state of misery for 3 years. It was terrible. I mean, terrible. If you've ever been in relapse, you know how terrible it is. If you've never been in relapse, you don't want to know what it's like. Because if you've been in program a really long time, you know what you're doing. And not only do you know what you're doing, you have the shame that comes with knowing that you're in program, you know better, but you can't stop, right? And it's terrible. It's a terrible feeling. And then on XXVII, it talks about that ease and comfort that I get at once. So I don't even have to work hard at it. All I have to do is take one bite and it's done. And it becomes, I feel better and I can manage life. But the problem is I really don't. I don't really manage life. That's that elusiveness. It's that whole not being able to differentiate the truth from the false. And I see other people eating with impunity. And after I've succumbed to the desire again, as I always do, I always do, right? Because I'm putting a food allergy into my body and it can't help but keep going. The phenomenon of craving develops and they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with the firm resolution not to eat again. And then this is repeated over and over again unless the person can experience an entire psychic recovery. There's very little hope of his recovery. And so I had my answer. My answer to get out of relapse was to get a psychic change. Now, it's all easy to say that, right? I'm going to get up and go have a psychic change today. Yeah, I wish it worked that way. But the program tells me what I have to do. And when I don't know what to do, the answer is always in the big book. And that is true for any problem I have. If I don't know the answer, it's in the big book. And if I don't know, and if I can't immediately find it in the big book, guess what? I got 10 steps that I can do about that. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I get, and I will say this part. I wish I could say that I had like this spiritual experience of like, poof, one day it's all better. But it's just not the way I operate. I'm real stubborn at heart and I'm real like question everything. That's just me. But my kid was walking around one day and he wanted to play. And I did. And I was so proud of myself for actually getting off the stupid couch and getting on the floor and playing with him. And I remember feeling so tired. and feeling exhausted from doing that with him. And it was because of the food. The food that I put in my body made me lethargic. And I couldn't even tell you what we did. Honestly, I couldn't even tell you what we played or whatever. But I remember thinking, oh my God, I've got many years of this ahead of me. I got to get my shit together. And that's when I decided to start working a program again. That's the reason. And, my God's okay with that. He's like, whatever your catalyst is, as long as it's a good one, it's okay. My God didn't care that I couldn't find it within myself. I had a reason. And that's what I need. I always need a reason, because given to my own devices, I'm going to continue to live in la la land about stuff, because that's just how my disease works. So I went on and started, for all intents and purposes, started working a program again. And I started all over again. I started at step 1. I wrote down my food history. I wrote down the foods that I can't eat. I don't do a red light, green light, yellow light. I don't do any of that, because that yellow light lets me get out. And that's because that's how my brain works. And I hate to say it's an all or nothing, because I know in program we don't like all or nothing, but when it comes to food, it's got to be all or nothing. I mean, to this day, my sponsor says to me, what are you doing? What is your plan? And if I'm like, hem hawing, what are you doing? What is your plan? I can't do gray spots with my food. So either I eat it or I don't. And unfortunately, as I get older, as I learn more about myself, there's more foods that I can't eat. Which sometimes sucks. But guess what? I want a life. And I get a life by being willing to just give it up and ask God to make it better. I went through all of the steps again. I did another 4-step. I did all my amends. I did everything I'm supposed to do. And I did it according to the big book way. For a while, because I was really struggling with just this, getting completely immersed in this, because my life was different. When I first started program, it was just me. I got to come and go as I pleased. If I wanted to go to a conference or where in another state, in another town, it was no big deal. But I had a husband and a child. And so my life got really different. And I had to learn to speak up for myself and say, I need to be able to go to this conference. I need to be able to go to this convention. I need to be able to go to this meeting. And I had to speak up for myself, which is so hilarious, because I talk all the time and speak up for people all the time. But when it comes to me, I'm always the last one on the list, because I think I'm not worthy enough. I think I'm not important enough. And I've had to learn that if I don't show up for myself, I can't show up for anybody else. And that is so true. When I get up in the mornings, if I haven't exercised, I'm pretty grouchy the rest of the afternoon, and I get resentful. And the question I have to ask myself is, what did I do to take care of myself today? If I chose to sleep in today, great. Own it, be on it, move on. That's what you did to take care of yourself. If I fiddle farted around, then I need to own it, move on, and not be like, oh, poor Delia, poor Delia, poor Delia. I have to own my actions, which I don't like to do, even though I want to be a grown-up. And I tell my kid all the time, it is a privilege to do certain things, but it also comes with responsibilities, right? And I love the privileges of being an adult, but I don't always want to be responsible like an adult. And so being responsible requires me to own my actions. I expect that out of my kid. Why would I not do that for myself? Well, because my disease likes to tell me different, right? That's the answer to that. And I want to spend I'm not sure exactly where I'm at my time, but I want to spend my last, time talking about steps 10, 11, 12. And again, I will say this, I did a 5th step with a person in AA, didn't even know her. She was wanting to hear my 5th step, and I did it because my sponsor lived in Arizona at the time. And it was the most wonderful thing I'd ever done. It almost allowed me to just have a complete stranger just hear all my junk. And she was like, you know what? I've been there, done that. And it was wonderful. And here's what I do to go to links for my recovery. I go to open AA meetings. I know OA's been on Zoom, but AA is open. And I have been going to open AA meetings pretty regularly because I need to hear recovery. I need to see it. I need to be focused. Being honest with myself is recognizing, I tried the Zoom thing and I don't stay focused. I get distracted and my brain goes in all sorts of places. I got to have my butt in a seat looking at somebody and focusing on them. So knowing that's how I work, I made I did what I needed to do for my recovery, right? I have step work that I still do to this day, and I got to sit down, do my work. And most of the time I do it with my little cup of coffee because it makes me get it done. It sits me down. When I need to do a 10-step, I will text. Why? Because I'm not always in a private place where I can have a private conversation, but we've been given the ability to have all this technology, and that's what I do. Whatever I need to do to be as far away from the food as possible, I got to do it. And I can't make any bones about that. Like I have to do it because guess what? I'm one step away from relapse. And not because I'm so emotionally or spiritually unstable, but that's because that's how quick the disease comes. The disease comes back so fast and I don't even know it because it masks itself as a very like calm, subtle thought, it's just very tricky. And the big book tells us this. Like the big book says, our disease is so cunning, baffling, and powerful. And it also says without help, it's too much, right? And so all these things that I have to do, I got to do it because that's my help. I realized when I started doing the steps again, I didn't really understand step 10, 11, and 12. I didn't really understand it. They were there, but I never did it. And I will be honest and say I don't do it perfect today. But I know they exist, and I consciously try to do it. And so step 10, and I'm reading off of page 62. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong page. I'm reading off of page 84. This thought brings us to step 10. And that thought is the sentence right before it. Are these promises being fulfilled among us? Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. And that's the caveat. I have to work for them. And the book tells me so many times, right? Half measures availed us nothing, right? There is no middle of the ground road or no middle of the road solution. I'm either all in or I'm all out. And if I'm all in, that means I'm working for the solution, which means I'm going to get the promises. This thought brings us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set wrong any new mistakes as we go along. I didn't really understand what that meant. I thought it's a one and done. But this is stuff that happens on a daily basis. If my husband does something I don't like, if my kid does something I don't like, or somebody honks at me on the road and I don't even know what I did wrong, if I have a feeling that is not, if it's like an ugly feeling, sometimes it's happy. Like my world could be just fine and I freak out. When's the shoe going to drop? When anything comes up, I have to take inventory about it. And so it does it as I go along. It then continues and says we vigorously, right? Vigorously commence this way of living as we cleaned up the past. Meaning when I'm doing 8 and 9, I start 10. I don't finish my amends and then go to 10. I immediately start doing it. We have entered the world in the spirit. And I'm going to make this sentence applicable to me. My next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. And if I'm in the food, I'm definitely not effective, and I'm sure as hell not understanding. Because when I'm in the food, or if I'm as we sometimes hear, dry drunk, which I've done that too, I'm sure as hell not understanding because it's Deliah's way all day, all night. But my job is to try to understand and be more effective. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for a lifetime. That also tells me step 10 is something I just continue. And then here's what I have to do. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Now, by the time I'm at step 10, as my sponsor said to me, I should know what those 4 words mean. And if I'm confused about what selfishness is, then I need to either go back and look at my 4-step or go look it up in the dictionary or go back and read it in the big book, because it tells us what the definition of selfishness is. I know what dishonesty is. And I have to also remember that dishonesty is by omission. It's not just me outwardly saying a lie, it's also me hiding. And then resentment, we know what that means. And then fear, which is basically everything else, right? When those things crop up, and it tells me it's going to crop up because it uses the word when, I ask God to remove them at once. Then I discuss them someone immediately and make amends quickly if I've harmed anyone. And then I turn my thoughts over to someone I can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. And then it goes and talks about the promises that we receive from continuously working step 10. Step 11 talks about I need to pray and I need to meditate. And I have to tell you, it's real hard for me to sit around for 10, 20 minutes at a time. Honestly, sometimes my meditation is just being quiet in the shower. Sometimes it's being quiet on the drive to work. Sometimes it's me taking a walk. There's a lot of different ways by which I can meditate. I make it a point to tell God, thank you very often for not letting me die, because I could have been dead at least 10 times already. You don't weigh what I weighed and not be dead. But I'm not dead today. So I make it a point to ask God every day. At nighttime, I have to constructively review my day. What did I do? Where did things go wrong? What was good about it? What was bad about it? Was I kind to people? What could I have done better? It gives you kind of the questions on page 86 of what to ask myself. And I do that. And oftentimes, I have to remember, what did I do to pack in to the stream of life? What did I do for other people? And that's I have to really consciously remember to do that, and holding the door open for somebody through the store is a great start, but that can't always be what I do and claim as the thing I did for somebody else today. It has to grow, because that's what God wants me to do. He wants me to grow. And then I have to ask for God's forgiveness and inquire any corrective measures that should be taken, right? Like, what amends do I need to take? What do I need to do better? And this is basically just kind of the catch-all. Like, what I didn't make through in a 10-step, did I take care of this through an 11-step? Just to catch in all those feelings so that I don't go back to the effect, right? Because I'm going to eventually, those feelings are going to bottle up if I don't resolve them. And it's going to make me want to go back to the food, because my brain will always remember what it felt like when I was in the food, right? That sense of aha, that sense of ease and comfort, that my brain's always going to be that way. And that's sad to say, but I don't know somebody that hasn't been in recovery for many, many years that doesn't say to me, if you stop working the program, yeah, because that's what our disease does. It wants to find the easier, softer way. And that is the easier, softer way, is to go back to the food. And then, of course, it talks about what I need to do if I get agitated during the day, which is pause. And then, when I do these consistently and religiously, I don't have anger. I don't have fear. I don't have worry. I don't have self-pity. I don't make silly decisions about stuff. I'm thoughtful. I'm mindful. And I'm very productive. And then step 12 is just about working with other people, right? Carrying the message. And the key is you have to have a message to carry. That's what the big book says. That's not Deliah. That's what that says. So let me say this last thing. My time of recovery has been colorful, imaginative, depressing, difficult, and very, very much the best thing that I could ever have. Because I know what it's like not having a program of recovery. my best attempts to not live in the food was before I got into program. And it was pretty damn miserable. And even though it's sometimes hard, I don't want to hear what my sponsor has to tell me. I want to balk about stuff, which I balk. I'm a balker. Like, I'm just kind of a rebel sometimes. And I would say probably oftentimes. Sometimes it's probably really minimizing that. I could be a rebel a lot. But I have to tell you, like, this program has stopped me from killing myself, killing other people, like literally killing other people. It stopped me from destroying any and every relationship I've ever had, you know. But it gives me a way, it gives me an ability to live life. And it is on life's terms, but the steps give me the way to how to live on life's terms, because I got opinions galore. And things like, I notice things about my kid and I'm like, okay, well, we need to work on that. And I show up for him every day. I often would get stressed out thinking he's going to be a compulsive overeater. And so I do all these like little things to control the situation, to monopolize the situation. But, when I leave it alone and I watch him, he doesn't. And I'm so grateful for that. And what I have to do is teach him that there's a way, right? Like, it's okay to see mommy sad. We pray to God. We do prayers every day. We thank God every day. At nighttime, I'll say to him, what is something good that happened today? What is something bad that happened today? Is there anything that you wish was different today? It's like doing a mini 11 step with him. But that way he can talk about it. My kid talks about everything under the sun. Half the stuff I don't know because it's stuff that kids do today that I don't understand. And it's nothing bad, but I show up for him. And he knows he can come talk to me all the time. He knows that. He comes and talks to me about everything. And I mean everything. And I'm okay with that because that matters. He knows he can come to me. I can't show up for him if I'm in the food. I can't show up for myself if I'm in the food. I can't show up for anybody if I'm in the food.
Time's up.
I didn't hear you, Gail.
Time's up.
Okay. I'm sorry. I missed your 5-minute.
I didn't talk loud enough. I do apologize.
Okay. No problem. Well, if I can have like 30 seconds to read a page off of 164 when we're done with the open speaker and the question answers, I'm happy. I'd love to do that.
Sure.
Thanks, Gail.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We will now open the floor for 2-minute questions and answer shares for the speaker. Please focus your questions and shares on the topic of this meeting. For those who arrived late, the topic of this session is relapse. Place your questions in chat and the Zoom host will read them to the speaker. Please focus your shares on answering the question, asking the question, what is your main takeaway? How will you apply this to your program? Let me say that again as it was written. Please focus your shares on answering the question, what is your main takeaway? How will you apply this to your program? To share, please raise your virtual hand by selecting raise hand at the bottom of the reaction menu located at the bottom of your screen or at the bottom of the participant list. If you are joining by phone only, please use *9 to raise and lower your hand. The leader will call on you to share. Please select unmute to speak. The leader will signal when time's up. The meeting is now open for Q&A sharing. So I'll be looking for people as they raise their hand.
Go ahead, Jacqueline.
Thank you. And Delia, thank you so much for your share. I've known you for many years. I remember when you were, did the Dallas convention. And anyway, just to hear more of your story. My takeaway, I just think, you really emphasized what happens when we don't stay in that 10, 11 step, and when we don't stay, when we don't do what we need to do on a daily basis, and then how beautiful it is when you stay in that and you connect to the people around you, especially your son, and what you're teaching your son, that, feelings just are, they're not good or bad, and we get to share them. And they don't have to rule our lives, because, I also, if I listen to my head, it is a crazy place to be. So yes, I need to stay in those steps. For me, I've been in program for 41 years, and really my abstinent date is August the 23rd of 2018. And what happened was, I didn't stay. I rested on my laurels each time I can see. Each time I had a relapse, it was because, I've done this so many times. This is for newcomers. I don't need to do it. Whatever my head was telling me. Today, I know I can't afford any of that kind of thinking. I've got to do this like my life depends on it, because it does. I'm disciplined today because I have what's called a 10, 11 step train. I have a partner that changes every 2 weeks. I have to do that work. I'm undisciplined. I would not do the work if I didn't have that. So I need a lot more than most people do. I go to more meetings than I did when I first came into program. And thank you for letting me share. And thank you again, Deliah.
Thank you. And Seneca, we have you up.
Hey, this is Seneca. I'm in Fort Worth, and I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for your sharing. I loved what you shared about holding the door is a good place to start, but it can't end there. And I consider myself a chronic relapser for a while, been in OA since 2008 and abstinent since 2019. I've realized service is the way that I've been able to ensure, right, that I'm walking the talk. And how does honesty, openness, and willingness play a part in your day-to-day program? Thanks.
Can I go ahead and answer?
Go ahead,
Okay.
please.
Thank you. So for me, Seneca, the honesty first starts with the fact that I remind myself I'm a compulsive overeater and an addict every day. My open-mindedness, what I do is I tell God, I don't know everything. I don't know what you want from me today. I don't know how you want me to handle all situations today. And that, I feel like when I say that to God, it allows me to have a perspective that I could be willing and open to hear what he says. And then my willingness every day comes from doing things that I'm not comfortable with doing, right? Like, I don't really like to always plan my meals. I'll be real honest with you. I kind of still like that fly by night kind of mentality, but I have to text my sponsor and say, this is what I'm eating. I have to be willing to log in my food every night and tell her what I did. I have to be willing to, come or deal with what comes that day. And then I have to be willing to work the program every day.
Tom?
All right, good. Thank you. And I have, excuse me,
Gail.
Daphne?
Okay.
No, I don't have my hand raised, but Gail does.
Okay, I've got it here. All right, good deal.
Thank
Gail, go
you.
ahead. Please go ahead.
Delia, thank you so much for sharing, your recovery and your story. Really appreciate it. And I've heard you speak before, and I take something away from your sharing your story every time I hear you. So thank you so much for being here, and I always get a lot out of it. So thank you again for coming and allow me to time you. But anyway, thanks a lot, Dia.
Thank you, Gail. And then Lori?
Hi, I'm Lori, compulsive overeater from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Delia, I wanted to thank you and let you know that you've helped someone today. So I joined the program just under 2.5 years ago, and I achieved my first recovery, removal of my cravings in early 2020, just before the pandemic began. And so I am hyper vigilant about avoiding relapse, and especially during the pandemic with the loss of face-to-face meetings and so forth, I have felt at great risk. And what I'll say specifically is that I did not have the bedevilments clearly in my lens before today, so thank you for drawing my attention to that. And then also on page 84, which is essentially a recipe for avoiding relapse, which is exactly what I've been looking for. So thank you so much for your service today, and I'll pass.
Thank you, Lori. Anyone else? Would anyone else like to share or ask a question?
And we have exactly 2 minutes left for that, Pam. So anyone else, you have 2 minutes. I guess I'll share. What the heck? I'm Davney, compulsive overeater. I hate the phrase chronic relapse. Chronic relapse. I despise it because that's what I am too and have been. And I'm clean and sober, but I had a real struggle this week. And that food calls, and I hate it when it calls. So I just think that this is a disease of relapse, but better than that, relapse is progressive, but so is recovery. And I think if I can remember that, and we all remember it, and keep coming back, I'm in good shape. So I'll pass.
Good, thank you. And let's see, it's we have time for one last question or share at 9:56 where I am at 8:56. One last.
If there's not anyone, Pam, can I go ahead and read that page 164?
Oh yes, that would be perfect.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
Go right ahead.
Thanks. So I'm on page 164. I'm again Deliah, compulsive overeater and food addict. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we only know a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past and give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you. That was beautiful to hear. We'd like to thank Deliah. I hope I said that right again. And everyone who attended this session. We will now have a 10-minute transition break to get ready for our next session. Either together we can do what we could never do alone, meetings and fellowship in this room, or together we can do what we can never do alone, the tool of telephone and technology in room A. As a reminder that the agenda is wrong for these sessions, they will begin at 10:10. So thank you everyone for your service on the line.
Thank you, Pam, for your service too. Good job, everybody. Gail, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, everyone. Y'all
And
have a
this-
wonderful
Thanks,
day.
everybody.
Deliah, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
course.
That was so
Thank you.
impressive. And I really am glad this is being recorded so that I can listen to that again. I wanted to scribble some notes and didn't feel like I could do it. So
Oh,
thank you.
yeah. Oh, you're so welcome. I'm happy to be of service.
Thank you, Deliah.
And I was gonna are we still being recorded? I was gonna send a quick shout out to Libby real fast. I was gonna try
We
to
are-
send her a message in the chat, but I don't think I can do that.
We are being recorded, but do what
It's
you
not
have to do.
terrible. It's not terrible or at all. Libby did the mural for my kiddo's bedroom and the bathroom, and it's still up 9 years later. He doesn't want to take it down. He loves it. So I was going to just send a shout out to Libby and say, it's so beautiful. He loves it. He doesn't want to take it off ever, ever. So thank you, Libby, for doing that. I think he really enjoys the peacefulness and calm of it. And I say, come on, we can repaint it and we can do all these things. No, I want to see my dolphins. I want to see my stars. And we put new little stars on it. So Libby, thank you so much for doing that. He loves it. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you, Deliah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.